Awesome. We'll get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you're joining us live, and we know we've got a bunch of people that are wanting to watch this a bit later as well. So we'll just get the ball rolling and get started. My name is Lily. For anybody that doesn't know me, I'm an independent consultant and an area manager with Arbonne. My background is in the skin and beauty industry, but my husband was from the fitness industry. We owned a gym a few years back, and my lovely friend Sharon is joining me in hosting tonight's Healthy Habits event. She's a certified health coach, and she'll introduce herself a little bit more a bit later. But basically, we really want to just be able to share with you guys as much information as we can about everything to do with habits and living a sustainable, healthy lifestyle. So I guess the reason why I'm and me and Sharon, but I'm particularly passionate about habits, is that I see so many women trying every new diet, feeling a lot of guilt around food, using exercise as a punishment or a way to, burn calories, burn off food. And that was 100% me not that long ago, and it wasn't a nice cycle to be in. So I'm going to just share with you a little bit about my journey to a much healthier relationship with food, how I broke some really bad habits that I was in. Sharon's then going to share some extra things from a health coach perspective, and some more info around cravings and kind of the psychology around that, and a few other things. But let's jump straight in. So a bit about my story. So about 3 years ago, I was in a completely different place to where I am now. So I've never been an overweight person, but I definitely did not have a good relationship with my body, and especially with food. So I basically spent most of my 20s trying every kind of diet that came around. I did keto. I've done lots of fasting, counted calories, counted macros, cutting carbs out of my diet, clean eating. And I never was able to really stick to, anything like a lot of us have experienced. I was never able to stick to anything like that for more than a week or two. I was very much addicted to sugar. I had a very bad sort of binge and restrict cycle. So I would be quite good with my eating during the week, and then I would binge on weekends, and would just end the weekend. I just felt like I was doing so much damage to my body, basically. And holidays were the worst. Like, I would go on holidays and a switch would flick in my brain, and I would basically just want to start eating and drinking everything that was around. So it was just not a nice cycle to be in. So I'm going to share with you some of the kind of just the small nitty-gritty practical steps that I took to get myself to the place where I am now, which is a place where I'm not at all controlled by food. I wake up with, happy tummy and digestion like 99% of the time, which is amazing. I don't get lethargic from food. I can control myself around food. And I guess the biggest reason why we feel like this is so worth sharing is because the worst part about it was how I was affected mentally by all of that, and just how much mental energy that all of this took. So maybe some of you can relate to that feeling. So at the start of that journey, so around 3 years ago, basically it started with me coming to a realization that I had to do things differently. Like, it wasn't going to work to try all these different diets. It wasn't going to work to be overly restrictive. I realized that I really needed to start making changes to my daily habits, one very small bit by bit at a time. And that was hopefully going to help me be able to sustain a much better relationship with food that I really wanted. I didn't want to yo-yo anymore, and just wanted to get out of that cycle. So I'm going to tell you a little story. I call it my Kit Kat story, that really relates to habits and habit stacking. So basically, I was just in a really kind of bad habit of overeating after dinner. So, I mean, amongst other times, sometimes in the day, but especially after dinner. So I'd been in this habit for years where I would basically eat fairly well during the day, but once dinner was done, I would just want to eat anything and everything. So I would want to binge on chocolate, sweets, had a huge sweet tooth. I'd just get the munchies big time. And it really just stopped me from making any sort of progress with like my, getting to where I wanted to be in my body. It affected my digestion. I was bloated a lot, and mentally I just, I hated that sort of feeling of being out of control after dinner. So if I had a big block of chocolate in the fridge, it would basically be super hard for me to not just eat the whole thing. I would basically just eat until I felt sick. Now, I knew that restriction wasn't going to work for me because I'd tried that. So I knew that I couldn't, just say to myself, all right, you're cutting out chocolate or you're not going to eat anything after dinner. There's just no way that I was going to be able to do that. So a couple of years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, I basically decided to like implement this strategy and just see how it went. I didn't really know how it was going to go, but what I basically first did was I started to go to the shops every single day. I live in Bali, so, there's small little shops everywhere. I would go to a shop every single day and I would buy one Kit Kat for myself. That was like my favorite chocolate at the time. So I knew that I had that Kit Kat for the day. I knew that I had it to look forward to after dinner. I would try to eat it as mindfully as possible. Once dinner was done and I was having my dessert, I would try to sort of really savor it. And I did that for probably about like 2 months. Basically, like I probably did that. Yeah. So I did that for about 2 months. I would buy one Kit Kat a day. Occasionally I bought 2 just to try and save myself some time the next day, but I would more often than not just end up eating them all because they were there. But basically once I sort of had that once I had that under control and I felt like I wouldn't go overboard, I then decided to transition that Kit Kat into something a little bit more healthy. So I would then go and get something from a like health food shop, like a raw treat or something that I knew, that I would like and would look forward to, but something that wasn't quite as highly processed as like just a regular chocolate bar. So I think I did that for a while, and that kind of helped me to sort of break that kind of real addiction to just like the very sort of cheap processed chocolate and sweets that I was used to. So after a while of doing that, I slowly, this is like months, a period of months, and I slowly was able to kind of get to a point where I didn't crave sugar so much after dinner. So it was just a little bit more manageable. And if I really felt like something, I would have something, but I could kind of not be so just having to have something after dinner. So that was kind of like firstly with my chocolate addiction. And I guess what I found was that I knew that it was going to be better to just focus on 1 or 2 habits at a time. So oftentimes we start a health goal and we have this list of sort of habits that we want to implement, like drinking more water and taking our supplements every day. And, we might have this big list of things that we want to start doing. But if we just actually pick 1 or 2 at a time and really just kind of in increments, slowly work on that, it's usually going to have a much better effect. It basically creates what's called a habit loop in our brain, where we do something so many times that we eventually just stop thinking about doing it and we just do it naturally. So that's kind of where I wanted to get to, and I was able to kind of get there with the whole dessert thing. So then I had setbacks in that time. Like I said, sometimes I ate 2 Kit Kats at a time, or sometimes we had something else in the fridge or in the pantry, from having friends over or whatever it was. And so I had setbacks, but I guess like I knew that because I, had decided at the beginning that this was going to take time and that I needed to do it slowly, the setbacks didn't make me just want to throw in the towel. It was a lot easier to just keep going and just, the next day, just get straight back into what I had been doing. So yeah, that was like a bit of a mental switch for me, where I was okay with having those small setbacks. Didn't, feel like I had ruined all of my progress. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't really getting anywhere, but I really just committed to keeping going, trusting that process and just doing things over and over again. So then that kind of flowed into other aspects. So other things that I really focused on doing at that time, because, I still recognize that I did kind of have this sort of addictive, I think I've got a bit of an addictive personality anyway, but like I had this kind of addiction around just wanting to eat food, especially after dinner. So I'd kind of, got that sugar thing under control, but I wanted to be able to be in control around everything that I put in my body. So other things that I then did and worked on was I really focused for a good probably 6 months. I really, really focused hard on having protein with every single meal. And basically when I, was going to have lunch or going to have dinner, and we eat out a lot in Bali. So, that was can be quite a difficult thing sometimes. What I would do is basically I would pick what my protein source was going to be first for that meal. And then I would sort of, build my plate around that. So I really thought about what was going to be a good, or the best source of protein on the menu. And, I chose that first. And I guess the benefits of doing that were, obviously keeping me fuller for longer, being more satisfying, helping me to not crave sweets so much after a meal. Because if you're having a very sort of high carb meal, you're just going to kind of keep craving those sort of simple carbs and sugars straight after. Keeping my blood sugar steady with that, with that protein, and having a really balanced meal. So that was something that was really important, and that really helped as well. And I worked on that for quite a while. And now I kind of just do it fairly naturally. Sometimes I don't, like sometimes if I really want a bowl of pasta or something when I go out, I'll let myself have that. But more often than not, I'm looking for what's going to make me feel the best for longer. Same with like things like water. I, just bought a bigger water bottle, and, that's kind of been the change that I needed to be able to get 3 liters in every single day. So just kind of doing these small things, making these small little changes over long periods of time, to the point where, I just don't really need to think about it anymore. Now, the next thing another thing, it was all kind of happening around about the same time, but I realized that I really needed to also change my mindset around exercise and around like that counting calories mindset that I had been in for so long. And especially like being in the fitness industry as well, with, my husband being a PT, and, he taught me all about how to track food. And I was very like focused on numbers and what the numbers was in food, but also I was super focused on what I was doing for exercise and whether I was burning off enough calories, to lose weight. And honestly, like that it just didn't really work. Like I was, just kind of obsessing about it. And if I had a really good training session, I would just end up eating more food, because my brain would kind of say, oh, like you can probably afford it. You've burnt all these calories. And usually that is not the case. Usually you can eat so many more calories than you're burning super easily. So what I basically realized I needed to do was completely change my mindset around exercise, and not have it as something that was just all about burning calories. So this is what worked for me. It's, I'm not saying to everybody to do this, but I actually found, so I wore a smartwatch, and I was really focused on counting my steps and looking at how many calories I'd burned and all of that kind of thing. And I actually just stopped wearing it completely. I found that I was just fixating on it way too much, and it wasn't helping me at all. And I also threw away the scales. Like I was weighing myself every single morning, and that kind of roller coaster of just all the changes that your body goes through, like every single day of the month. Like as women, our weight can fluctuate hugely, but mentally, like if my weight would go up in the morning, and especially if I felt like I'd been really good the day before, like that was super demoralizing. And it was just, I realized I was so fixated on it. So I stopped weighing myself completely. I think the batteries in our scales eventually ran out, and I can't even remember the last time I weighed myself. So I really kind of changed that focus from being all around like numbers and, working out the math and all of that kind of thing, to how I felt inside, and, how my clothes were fitting and all of that kind of thing. Now, another kind of switch that I also made was around taking the focus, like I said, off those sort of like calories and all of that kind of thing, off the exercise, and changing it to a health focus, right? Or and even more specifically, a gut health focus. So I did Arbonne's 30 Days to Healthy Living program, which I was actually super skeptical about, because it is all about focusing on your health, focusing on your gut health, not counting calories or doing any of that stuff that I, had been conditioned to believe that was the only way to sort of lose weight and know what was going on in your body. But yeah, having that break from alcohol, having that break from gluten, dairy, high sugars, really just helped to give my body the break and the reset that it needed, forced me to put that focus on my gut health and reduce inflammation in my body and all that kind of thing. And obviously when you feel better and you feel more energetic and you feel less lethargic, you're more motivated to want to continue that feeling and to feed yourself with things that are going to make you feel good. I stopped fasting. I had not eaten breakfast for probably like almost 10 years. I had been intermittent fasting for a very long time, but I actually stopped doing that. I started to eat breakfast again. The 30 Days program sort of encourages a healthy, balanced breakfast of protein, fats, and carbs. So that was a huge adjustment for me, like getting over the mental fear of having actually 3 meals in a day. Like that was a big thing for me, and plus a couple of snacks as well. Like I kind of just had to trust that process. And it actually had the opposite effect. I have got to the point now where the more I seem to eat, like the more I'm kind of able to maintain or even, lose body fat. So it really does kind of work taking that focus onto your health. So I was actually, I worked with a holistic doctor sort of, a little bit later, and totally unrelated to Arbonne, but he sort of advocated the same things. He sort of said, like, especially for women's hormones, balancing our blood sugar by eating, a balanced meal in the morning actually can help to mean that you have less cravings. And I definitely found that as well. Eating more meant that I had less cravings. So I actually ate less of the bad stuff, if that makes sense. And it basically just helped me to be able to listen to my body, like listen to actually what it was telling me. So I wasn't being controlled by these huge blood sugar swings where I would get super hangry and end up going for, carb heavy or, sugars and that kind of thing, which just left me feeling gross. I was obviously opting for more nutritious meals, and that switch again over time, this is not overnight at all. This took me probably a good kind of 2 years to really, and I wouldn't even say that I've properly mastered it yet, but going from just feeling totally out of control around food and around how I felt inside, because I just couldn't really control what I was putting in my mouth, to a place where now, food doesn't control me at all. I enjoy it, but it doesn't take up any of my mental space. So it's like a huge difference. So my main learnings over this journey, just to kind of wrap this up in a nutshell, is sometimes you really have to take a step back and put your health first for a while. So once you've kind of got, well, for me anyway, once I'd got rid of those sort of addictions, especially to sugar, I was able to have, that better relationship with food. And then from that point, that is a much better place to be, working on specific goals, maybe like weight loss. You'll probably find that when you are putting your health first for, a decent period of time, that because your hormones and your gut are functioning much better, that is going to happen naturally anyway. But that place, once you're in control around food, that is the place where it's a lot easier to be making big changes or hitting certain goals or whatever it is. And Sharon will maybe go into that a little bit more from a health coach perspective. But yeah, that's basically been my journey. It's been, I've got, I'm a completely different person as far as what I do for health and fitness and how I eat these days. Now I just literally just exercise. I don't even think about what I'm burning when I'm exercising. I literally just exercise for, enjoyment and maintaining what I have. And, my body functions so much better now and loses fat so much easier and better now as well. So yeah, hopefully sharing some of that has, hopefully some of you ladies can relate to some of the things that I've said. I'll hand over to Sharon now. She can introduce herself and give us some more amazing tips. But yeah, thank you for listening, and hopefully, I've shared something that's been helpful.
Thank you so much, Lily. I loved hearing that again and all of your learnings out of that. And it was really hard for me when you were talking, because I wanted to jump in and go, yes, because there's so many things that you shared that, really resonated with me. And I guess that was part of what was behind this workshop. So just to introduce myself, so my name is Sharon Gleeson. I'm an executive regional vice president and independent consultant with Arbonne. My background's corporate. Like I spent 25 years in the corporate world. I always prioritized my health and my fitness. But I was probably one of those skinny fat people, and probably very similar to Lily. On the outside, I looked like I was super healthy, but some of the things that I was doing weren't healthy. And a lot of the time it was actually just out of sheer, busyness and stress with trying to juggle a career and kids. So I would do things like, I'd have a green smoothie for breakfast, which was great, but wonder why by 10 o'clock, I was just about eating my arm off because I wasn't getting any protein or, any of those other healthy fats and things in my breakfast. And then often I'd end up skipping lunch. I'd be relying on coffee, and I'd grab a muesli bar or something like that, to get me through the afternoon. And I would always eat a really healthy dinner. So I wasn't doing necessarily unhealthy things, but I wasn't really fueling my body in the right way. So I've really learned a lot about how to fuel my own body. And I guess, so over the last 7.5 years, having my Arbonne business and working with people on the program that Lily was talking about, the 30 Days to Healthy Living program, one of the things that I started to get really curious about was why people were able to do things, why some people could do things for a certain period of time. Some people could make big changes, but what I found was most people really struggled with making changes and being able to stick with them long term. So I got really curious and I thought, how can I help my clients be able to do this and manage it better, make more sustainable changes? So I actually explored looking at doing health coaching. It was during COVID, and I decided to jump in and do it, and absolutely loved it. And through that process, I guess I've really started to understand a lot of the things that Lily just talked about are massive things that people struggle with. There's a lot of information out there about food, and people have tried lots of different diets and fasting, and people now are just so overwhelmed and confused about food and what they should do. Depending on what era you were brought up in, you might have been told that carbs are bad or fats are bad. It was low fat, but low fat means high sugar. So there's all these crazy things that have filled our heads, certain body image issues and things that people have been conditioned with their upbringing. And so it's really about, unpacking a lot of those sort of things and figuring out what it is that we can do to actually create and maintain a healthy lifestyle. And I really love what Lily was saying about, it's not about calories or, meeting certain standards. It's actually about health and what feels really good for you. And I'm similar. I actually, I used to weigh myself every day. And you were like, oh, how come it weighs this much today when I haven't been doing anything? Or, I have lots of clients who will say, I had the best week, and then I weighed myself and, I didn't achieve what I was hoping for. And then they end up disappointed, and then they think, oh, stuff it, it's not working. And so they end up falling off the wagon. So a lot of the things that Lily has just talked about are all really important things that we need to take into consideration when it comes to, creating and maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and habits really are the key. So something else that I've done is I have studied this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Honestly, I would probably say it's one of my favorite books. So it's a big book, and we're on here for like 40 minutes. So what we're going to share with you tonight really is just the tip of the iceberg, and there's a whole lot more that we can share. But honestly, the key to achieving whatever it is that you want is learning how to actually build the habits that are going to support the lifestyle that you want. So I'm just going to share my screen and just summarize a few of the things that Lily has talked about, if there are some habits that you're wanting to change. So first of all, just having a look at what are some of the things that we can do to break the habits that maybe are not the habits that are serving us, whether it's the, binging on chocolate or ice cream after dinner, whether it's skipping meals. It might be, a lot of people who might have a wine. It doesn't start necessarily with having a wine every night, but it might be like, oh, I had a busy day or stressful day. I'll have a wine, and the next day is a stressful day and have a wine. And before you know it, 6 months down the track, you're drinking every night. So it's where there are habits that you feel maybe aren't serving you or you'd like to change. How do I do that? And as Lily said, it starts with making a decision. It's that's the first step, is deciding, do you know what? I think I actually want to get this chocolate habit under control, or maybe I don't want to be drinking every night because that's maybe not the role model I want to be setting for my kids, or whatever it is. Once you've made that decision, it's then about putting a plan in place to actually be able to get there. So making that whatever it is that's your temptation invisible or inaccessible is a really good way. If you're that sort of person who knows, and this used to be me, if there was a block of chocolate in the fridge, I'd be like, it's there. I'm going to have, you know, a row or 2 rows or whatever. But then I'd be like, I just want to eat it and get it out of the fridge. I don't know if anyone can relate. Tell me in the chat, but I meet lots of people who say the same thing. But when it's not there, and as Lily said with the Kit Kats, she didn't buy 7 Kit Kats and then, you know, have one a night. It was, I'd go and buy 1 Kit Kat every day. And that's a really great thing, is if you don't have it there, it's obviously that much harder to have to go and do it. And that's one of the things that James Clear talks about in the book, is making things invisible so that you can't see them. Don't make it too big and unrealistic. And that's a really, really important one as well. And one of the things that, one of the basic fundamentals of health coaching is, the more change someone needs, the less they can handle. And as Lily said, you know, often we say, okay, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, I'm going to drink more water. People have all these big goals. And what happens is they're busy, they don't have time, they haven't got the systems in place. They try and do these big, crazy things. It's like all the people that start New Year's resolutions, and then they can't sustain it because they haven't got everything in place. And that's one of the hardest things, I think, is to help people to be able to do it slowly. And honestly, the compound effect of small changes over time is remarkable. But unfortunately, most of us want instant gratification. And so we do something, and if we don't see results quickly, we get disappointed and then we fall off. So one of the biggest things that I have to work with people on, and that's why I think support is really, really important when people are making change, is just every week saying, it's okay, you know, you're still making progress. Let's focus on what you have achieved. So small changes that you can implement and sustain is absolutely the way to go. In the book, he actually says, if you want to start going and becoming really regular at exercising, he says, on the first day, drive to the gym and then drive home. Now, I don't know about anyone else, but I'd never do this. He goes, then drive there and go for 2 minutes and then drive home, and then go there, you know, for 4 minutes. So you gradually build up the habit of exercising over time. And I've actually got a client I'm working with at the moment. She hasn't exercised for over 10 years. She started by doing 6 minutes of exercise a day. And what she's done is she actually has linked it. I'm jumping ahead a bit, but I'll tell you now. She's linked it to something she's already doing. So in the morning, her habit is, I get up, I feed the cat, I do my exercise. So she's linking it to a habit she's already doing. And she said, you'll probably laugh at me, but I'm only doing 6 minutes. Now she's up to 12 minutes after a couple of weeks. But the really cool thing is that she's still doing it because she hasn't tried to go to the gym 3 times a week and, you know, kill herself in the process. And she's enjoying it. And that means she's more likely to stick with it. So make a plan to do it slowly and sustainably. So I've really sort of touched on that, but that is really, really important to make sure that you are much more likely to stick at it if you do it that way. Swap, don't remove. So you would have heard Lily say that, you know, rather than cutting out the treats altogether, when she got to the point where she wanted to try something different, she went and found a healthy alternative rather than not having anything at all. And that's something that we really encourage people to do, is if you have got, you know, a sweet treat that you enjoy having after dinner, or maybe it's something after lunch, is looking for something healthier. And in fact, I was working with a client the other day, and she had dropped her son somewhere in the week before. She'd gone in and to the IGA and she'd bought a box of ice creams, and she ate the whole box of 4 ice creams. And what she did, so we'd sort of made a plan for that because she'd forgotten to bring her dinner. So I said, okay, so let's make a plan if you ever get in an emergency situation like that again, what you can do. So her plan was that she's always got a bottle of water with her. So she was going to have an energy fizz stick. But what she did was she called a friend. And by sitting on the phone and chatting to her friend, it took her mind off the fact that she was hungry. And, you know, it just kept her occupied because she wasn't necessarily that hungry. It was more the fact that the temptation and the thought of having the ice cream was what she wanted. So swapping rather than removing is a really good way. And that doesn't necessarily mean always swapping food options. It might be swapping the activity that you're doing. So for her, the swap was, don't go into the shop and buy the ice creams, call a friend, go for a walk, have something else. You know, it might be if it's wine at night that you have every night, I'll say to people, pour a glass of soda water and put a slice of lime in it. So that you've still got that habit of, you know, having a drink while you're cooking dinner, and then you can slowly start to do that. Or it might be, instead of going home and having a wine after work, go home and have a walk and then go and get dinner. So it can be other things than just swapping for food, but what we want to do is have an alternative for when that situation arises. Except that setbacks are normal. And as Lily said, you know, she realised that there was a day when maybe she didn't eat 2 cats, and that's all part of it. There's no failure. The only time that you fail.
Sharon, is that something on your speaker? some.
Oh, sorry. I was just put my paper on there.
Yeah. You're
Sorry.
now.
Yeah. So accepting that setbacks are normal. So again, you know, sometimes, particularly if you're someone who's a bit of a perfectionist, or you've got high standards, you know, sometimes when we have a bit of a setback, we're like, oh, you know, it's not working. And so we just throw the whole thing out. That's where you just go, okay, what can I learn from this? All right, maybe the learning is I don't have 2 Kit Kats in the fridge, I only have 1, and that I keep doing that. It's really, really important to understand that, you know, progress isn't always linear in the one direction that we want it. Sometimes it's going to take a bit of a path, but it's really important that you learn from each of those setbacks and put a new plan in place. And again, that's where that support's really important, because you know, again, sometimes it's just going, okay, you tried that didn't work. What else could we try? What could be a different alternative if that one's not working for you? And celebrate progress, not perfection. And again, you know, sometimes people who are perfectionistic when it comes to making change, you know, they don't want to get on the bike because they're scared they might wobble or fall off the bike. Whereas, you know, it's really important to just start and, you know, celebrate all the things that you do. I actually said to someone the other day, tell me about your week. We always start any call with what worked well, because there's always something that worked well, because people naturally want to jump in and go, oh my gosh, this week, you know, I didn't do that. And sometimes when you've actually looked at things, they might have done 6 things really well and 1 thing wrong. That was exact example happened to me on Friday, where someone said, you know, this is what I did. I said, all right, but let's look at all the other things that you did. You told me you did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 really good things, did 1 thing that wasn't so good. So overall, that's progress. And so really, really important to be actually focusing when you're changing a habit or breaking a bad habit, to celebrate the wins and the progress that you've made. So how do we actually create good habits? So the first thing is really focusing on the identity that you want to create. So sometimes we focus so much on breaking the actual habit or the habit that we're trying to put in place. Whereas really, and again, look, I'm just touching on this, but it's quite a big topic, but often we're focusing on outcomes rather than the identity. So really what we do, like often we'll do is say, what's a vision for what you really want for yourself? Is it that I want to be a fit, healthy, lean, you know, person in my, you know, 50s, 60s and 70s, where I can be living a healthy lifestyle and enjoy life and travel and do all the things that I want to do. I want to be a healthy person who makes healthy choices. Whatever the identity is that you are looking for, we've got to be focusing on that, because the thinking that got you to where you are now isn't necessarily going to be the thinking that will get you to where you want to go. So just, you know, for example, you know, someone who sees themselves as fat, even though they might lose weight and, you know, be in the shape of their life, if they've still got a mindset and fat eyes, they're going to still see themselves in that way. So what we want to do is, and same if, you know, you see yourself in a certain way now, but you want this picture of what it is you'd love for your health, we've got to focus on that and be focusing on what it is that you want to create for yourself. And I'll often say to people, you know, when that little devil's on your shoulder tempting you, focus on, I say, what would a, you know, fit, lean, healthy person do? And I had a friend who said, you know, I was walking to Pilates class and I walked past this most amazing patisserie. And she said, I could smell, I could see all these amazing things in there. And she said, I thought of you. And she said, I thought, what would a fit, lean, healthy person do? A fit, lean, healthy person would keep on walking to Pilates and ignore, you know, the patisserie. So sometimes it's little things like that can just really help you. So focusing on what it is that you want to create and that identity can really help to drive creating new habits. So as Lily said, start with small habits. You've got to make them easy and make them satisfying. So, you know, particularly when it comes to things like exercise, for example, if people are doing things that they don't enjoy, or it might be swapping, you know, something you're eating for something else, if that's not something that you'll enjoy, then you're not going to stick with it. So we need to find ways that it will make it easy, it'll fit into your lifestyle, but also that it's going to, you know, be satisfying for you as well. This is a really important one, and that is to focus on your system and not just your goal. And one of my favorite sayings from the book Atomic Habits is, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And really what that's saying there is, you know, I hear this all the time. People say, oh, you know, I want to drink more water, or I want to get fitter. So they've got this goal, but it's okay, great. So you want to drink more water. How exactly are you going to do that? We need to have a system and the steps in place. So it might be, I'll fill up 2 water bottles in the morning. And I'll, you know, aim to drink 1 by lunchtime and 1 in the afternoon. Or it might be, I'll, you know, fill up I'll have a tracker on my fridge and I'll tick off every time I have a glass of water. We've even got a water tracker that actually shows people, times of the day to try and aim to have them just to keep you on track. So if you don't have any sort of a system in place, then those goals just end up remaining good intentions. So use habit stacking, and that's where we start with building one habit and then we can build another one on it. So in the example that I used before of my client who gets up, feeds a cat, does her exercise, she was like Lily. She'd done fasting for many years and she'd also done keto for 18 months and decided that that really wasn't working for her. So she hadn't eaten breakfast for a very long time. So now the habits that we've stacked onto that is I get up, I feed the cat, I do my exercise, I eat breakfast. So if we can link habits to things that we're already doing, it makes them that much easier to implement because we've already got a system in place that's working for us. And that's where, once you've got those habits in place, they end up being on autopilot. And in fact, someone actually said to me the other day, it's really easy for you to stay fit and healthy. And I was like, actually, no, it's not. I have exactly the same sort of temptations as other people. And it was actually around, she said, how do you stay motivated? How do you keep motivated to keep doing the things that you're doing? And it was really good because it did help me to explore this in a lot more depth. One of them was that I have always had this identity that I do want to be a fit, lean, healthy person. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't enjoy a glass of wine, and I eat pizza with my family. We make them every Friday night. I'll have some dark chocolate once a week. So I still do enjoy healthy treats. I'm not some, freak. But I had really this winter been really struggling with exercise. And I thought, yeah, how do I stay motivated? Because this has been a very long, wet, cold winter. And when you swim outside in winter, it's not fun. It's not fun walking to the pool in the rain sometimes, getting, out of your warm swimming coat into your bathers and having to go, jump in the pool and it be raining on you and windy every time your arm comes out. And I remember feeling less and less motivated, but still swimming. And in fact, one day I got to the pool and there was a sign outside and it said the pool temperature was colder than normal. And I was like, and I'd actually thought to myself, do I go for my swim today? I was trying to see if I could let myself off the hook. I was like, I could really actually, my body's a bit tired, maybe I could just stay home. I've got other things I could be doing, but I was like, no, I'll go. And then when I got there and I saw the sign outside, I was like, it's a sign. It's a sign I shouldn't be going for a swim today. I got in my car. I literally had to drive past my house, but I kept driving to Claremont Pool. I usually swim at Peavey Park. I was going, what is it with me? Why am I doing this? My habit is I swim on a Thursday. It's become such a habit that it doesn't matter whether it's raining or cold or I feel motivated or not. My habit is I swim on a Thursday. And that's how I stay. It takes the motivation out of it. Even a few weeks later, I was literally sitting at the pool going, I could not be less motivated. I was actually saying this. I could not be less motivated to get in that pool right now. But I did. And it's because my habit is that I swim on a Thursday. So if you can really build the habits in so that they are on autopilot, that's what keeps you going. It's not necessarily motivation or discipline. It's actually the habit that will drive you doing the behavior that you want. Because I always know, by the way, that I feel better when I've been for a swim. It's just the thought sometimes of going that I don't enjoy. And the other thing is to track your progress, celebrate small wins, and keep what I call an evidence journal. So if you've created this identity of what it is that you want to create, I love for people to every day write down what were the things that you did today that were aligned with that new identity that you're wanting to create. And writing them down rather than just thinking about them becomes your evidence, because what he says in the book is create the vision of what it is that you want for yourself and reinforce it with small wins. So every little win that you make, even with Lily's example of the Kit Kat, so yes, she cut down the Kit Kats, then she switched to a raw treat. That was still progress, that she was working toward her goals. And that's the stuff that helps keep you motivated to keep going, because you're seeing that you are making that progress. So keeping an evidence journal is a really great way to actually track your progress and how things are, and those wins and that new identity. as Lily said, your mindset is massive, and we do work with people to focus on their mindset. And we tell ourselves lots of terrible stories and things that we would never say out loud to another person. But whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Like if you do want to change a habit, you can. It starts with that decision, but it's also a lot about your mindset as well. So just really quickly to wrap up, and I'm not going to go into this in detail because we're, really out of time. But I think it's really important when it does come to cravings that you understand that there are a lot of factors at play. Like a lot of people think to beat cravings, I just need to have more willpower or more self-discipline. And this is not about saying, oh, here's a whole bunch of reasons to let yourself off the hook. But there are a lot of physiological factors, but there are also some psychological factors as well. Our biochemistry plays a massive role in what's going on with our cravings. So there's 6 hormones, for example, that affect our hunger, our satisfaction or satiety, they call it. And the foods that we eat, the combination of foods that we eat can really make a massive difference and really help with that hormonal balance. There's also our neurotransmitters. So we're hardwired to crave, sweet foods. It's a basic survival mechanism. When we eat sweet foods, our brain likes it. We get this great hit of dopamine, which is associated with bliss and euphoria. It feels good. And so then we want to do it again. So we've got these hormones at play, these neurotransmitters at play. These are things we've got no conscious control over at all. It's happening at a subconscious level. Our gut health, the good and bad bacteria in our gut, if that is out of balance, there's a whole bunch of things that can make us crave sugar, carbs. If we can get our gut bacteria in balance, that can really help with our cravings. And Lily talked about that as well in terms of how she would wake up feeling in the morning. Nutrient deficiencies. Look, 70% of our diet's processed food. Our body's not just designed to be filled up with stuff to make us feel full. It's designed to be filled with nutrient-rich food. And if we're not giving our body the right nutrients, it's going to be craving energy or the things that we're not giving it. So we're going to make sure that we're putting the right nutrients into our body. And it's amazing. In fact, someone on the call tonight has been doing this. They've been making some massive changes and really surprised by how much food they can eat and how less hungry they are because they're putting nutrient-rich food into their bodies. Dehydration is a big one. Even if you're mildly dehydrated, so even as little as 2%, your body starts craving energy. It doesn't go, oh, I need a glass of water. It goes, I need energy. So we start craving foods that are going to give us energy. And what's that? It's going to be something that's going to give us that quick sugar hit. And we'll go for that. And even if we eat that food, because our body's still dehydrated, it's not going to register and it's going to still be craving the energy. And that's why sometimes we can eat something and feel like, oh my gosh, I just ate a Kit Kat, I could eat another one and another one. Whereas if we've rehydrated ourselves, that can help balance the craving out. So there's lots of different physical things at play that influence our cravings. And the food industry know all of this. And they manufacture a lot of the foods to actually play, particularly to some of our hormones, to make our body digest them quicker so we can eat more and so on. So it's really important to understand the key takeaway from this is there are some real physiological factors that can influence and impact our body's cravings. The other thing is that there are also emotional factors. So, sometimes it can be peer pressure. Someone's having a cake with their coffee and says, come on, have one with me. And you sort of feel under pressure to have that as well. There's conditioning, like I was brought up to eat everything on my plate. Or if you were brought up to have dessert after dinner, sometimes those things that are conditioned into us when we're really young can have a big impact on us in adulthood and can be something that can be really hard to break. Like I know for me, I really struggled. And I still, even though I'm acutely aware of it, I still struggle with not feeling like I need to finish everything on my plate. But again, I've created some habits to help me do that. Sometimes it's just habits. We just are in a particular habit that we do without even, necessarily doing it mindfully. It might be, having coffee at certain times of the day, or just, eating chips when we're drinking alcohol, or whatever it is. There's all these habits that are just in there that we haven't even consciously chosen to implement in our lives. Reward is a really big one. Like, oh yeah, I've been really good today. I've exercised. I'll have a McFlurry or whatever it is. Someone I was talking to the other day had said, I do use food as a reward. I work really hard. I study really hard. And so for me, I'll use food as a reward. And so what we can do is start to go, well, what could be some other things that you could use as a reward? So that goes back to that swapping we talked about earlier. so that instead of eating food, maybe doing something else that might nourish your soul or bring you joy that doesn't involve eating. Stress is a really big one. You know, people often will eat to manage stress, but also emotions as well. Like if they feel sad or lonely, sometimes we can eat for comfort. So there are some emotional factors as well. So really the takeout of all of this is that there's a lot of physical and emotional factors at play when it comes to cravings, and also our habits. And these are some of the things that we love to coach and support people in, helping them to become more mindful, as Lily had said earlier, about the habits that we've got, choose the ones that we want to keep, the ones that maybe we don't want, and then be able to create the habits that are going to support the lifestyle and the identity that we really want for ourselves. So that kind of wraps up the bit about habits that we wanted to talk to you about tonight. So I hope that there's some things there that you've learned. We are just going to really touch briefly on a Healthy Habits program and some special masterclasses that we're going to offer as part of that. So if you have got something out of this and you want to jump off the call, that's absolutely fine. If not, we'll just keep you for 2 more minutes and just tell you a little bit more about a program. So just really quickly, we do have a Healthy Habits program where we have a nutrition pack that's designed to address all of the things that we talked about. So as Lily said, like protein is massive, and honestly, I could talk to you for another hour about why protein is so important and we're not getting enough of it. It's going to help with increasing nutrients and energy, and it also is really importantly going to help with resetting your gut. So the Healthy Habits program includes some nutrition products to help with whatever it is that you are looking to address. We're going to give you access to a private community for education, support, and accountability. So it is, you know, a group of people who are on the same journey. We can help you with celebrating progress, much more education than what we've been able to touch on tonight. And what we're going to do is offer 4 free masterclasses around how to build habits. Now, this is not something that we normally do as part of the program, but just something that we want to do to really help set you up for success, I guess. So we've actually got 3 different nutrition bundles, and you can really choose the one that suits you. So we've got one called a Green Gut Glow, and some of you might have seen us doing a shots and squats challenge. That was really just our way of starting with a couple of basic, simple habits that didn't take a lot of time. And again, it's starting and meeting people where they're at. So it was really about just doing something to boost our nutrition by helping reset our gut, boost nutrients and give us more energy. And also the skin elixir in there is for, beautiful glowy skin. And we were doing 30 squats a day. So just, 2 simple things that we could do around movement and nutrition. Then we've got a Healthy Habit set, which is designed, if you are someone really busy and you don't have a lot of time to make changes, maybe to how you're eating your other meals and so on, but you want to start with something simple. This is a really great way to start with some simple changes. Usually what it involves is eating a really healthy breakfast and maybe swapping out some coffees or energy drinks to make sure you've got energy throughout the day. And then we've got a Healthy Habits program. So that's really a more full program. It's the one that Lily touched on, which is really designed to give you everything if you feel like, yep, I'd really like to give my body a bit of a reset. And again, it's about meeting you where you're at and making sure that we can help you do it in a way that is realistic and sustainable for your lifestyle. So if that's something that you think you'd be interested in joining us for, let us know. We'll share the details. That will be kicking off the week after next, so that we can help set you up with some products. We can pop you into that group and help you get started and understand what your goals and put a plan in place. So please reach out to the person who invited you on the call tonight if you think you'd like to talk to us a little bit more about joining our Healthy Habits program and about which nutrition bundle might suit you best. So we'll wrap it up there. We have gone a little bit over time, but just wanted to say a big thank you for joining us. I hope that you got some really helpful tips about how to create habits. And if you would like to join us on our Healthy Habits program, we'd love to have you there. So if anyone's got any questions, we'll definitely stay on the line. If not, thank you so much for joining us. And please reach out to the person who invited you to the call if you would like to join us.
Thanks, Sharon. That was awesome.
Pleasure. Thanks, Lily. Thanks for joining me. Has anyone got any questions before we jump off? Did you want to ask something, Josie? Or were you just waving and saying
goodbye?
Hello, bye.
I was just saying that it was great, and thanks very much to Lily as well.
Thanks,
So
Chris.
many great tips. Thank you.
Cool. No worries. All right. Well, thanks everyone so much. Enjoy the rest of your night and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Lily.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.